Greenwich Council's successes in terms of reducing carbon have gone back a long way. A lot of our interest started in our own council housing programme, and we've invested to improve the energy efficiency of our council housing, so that our SAP ratings, SAP is the standard measurement for energy efficiency, have gone up year on year. So we're now at a SAP of 72, which is very high, so it's well above the London average, and certainly way above the sort of typical private sector levels of insulation and energy efficiency. So that goes back years. More recently, we've been dealing with our own other emissions from the town hall and from leisure centres and so on. And by putting investment in terms of making the boilers work more efficiently, or just the basic things like loft insulation and draft proofing, the sorts of things everyone does in their own home, doing it on a big scale, we're reducing the carbon footprint significantly. It's interesting you ask about how the future strategy will be affected by spending cuts, because to some extent a lot of the climate change stuff is good investment. It saves money. If you're talking about reducing energy costs, the expectation is that energy prices will only go up in the long term. Investing in energy efficiency makes sense. So, for example, we've just had this £500,000 investment programme on our energy efficiency, and that expects to save around about £400,000 per year. So you spend that £500,000 and you recoup that money very, very quickly. So we wouldn't necessarily expect spending cuts to hugely impact negatively on our climate change programme. There will be some things that are at the fringes of it, and sometimes some unpredictable things happen. But basically, we have embedded the climate change programme and the sustainability programmes within our mainstream work, and we'd expect the savings from that to make it viable. Some interesting decisions have taken place in the last couple of years that have made some things more viable. So, for example, solar panels, photovoltaic panels, weren't viable really. People installed them as an act of faith rather than because it made financial sense. But with the feed-in tariffs coming into play, it's quite clear that technology now is not only a good statement to put on your roof, but actually will pay for itself, even if it's over a 10 or 15-year period. And all of these things mean that sort of the green agenda can move forward safely and financially, and it makes sense. The previous government has set in train an awful lot of successful initiatives for sustainability, and it has meant that we've got a clear path to help go forward in terms of all the aspects of climate change, whether that is in terms of carbon reduction or whether it's in terms of adaptation and biodiversity. And it's a big agenda. And what would be unhelpful if there's a sort of sudden change in programme which meant that all the things that we were lining up to do suddenly weren't viable anymore for whatever reason. So some consistency would be helpful, and that's following on from what was gone before.